Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, February 4th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma in for Maya Trabulsi. There is new fallout tonight, new concern over a controversial report blasting the abuse, even deaths, of inmates while in sheriff's custody. Family members, some dressed in black and holding signs, shared their grief and outrage over what they say was inexcusable action inside the county jails. Here's KPBS reporter John Carroll.
In front of San Diego Sheriff's Department headquarters today, a gathering of family members whose loved ones died while in jails run by the Sheriff's Department. Among them, Sundie Weddle and her daughter Sabrina. Sundie's son, Sabrina's brother, Saxon, died in the Central Jail in July of last year.
When something like this happens, not only are you grieving the loss, like the devastating loss of having to bury my young son, he had just turned 22, so simultaneously, I'm trying to find out what happened.
What happened, the circumstances surrounding 185 deaths in Sheriff's Department jails over the last 15 years, was what the California State Auditor's Office investigated. That investigation leading to a scathing report released Thursday. It contains suggestions for how the department can improve across a number of areas, including intake screening, medical and mental health follow-up, safety checks, and more. The Sheriff's Department responded to the findings of the audit. A statement says, in part, that the department supports many of the JLAC's recommendations. The JLAC is the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, which requested the audit. The department says it takes the findings of the audit seriously and that it's taking action to implement the recommendations. The families here all had painful stories to tell about the death of their loved one in jail. But one common theme emerged: the difficulty they say they have in getting any information surrounding those deaths.
We can't find accountability. We can't find transparency even because autopsies are locked, police reports and things like that. Family cannot get the proper documents to see what actually happened to their loved one. And this is a continued insult to injury.
Now that Sheriff Gore has retired, Yusef Miller says he's cautiously optimistic things will improve. But even if they do, the changes will be too little, too late for these families, many of whom are still in the dark about exactly how their loved ones died in jails run by the Sheriff's Department. John Carroll, KPBS News.
The San Diego Police Department is spending more than it budgeted on overtime. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says that's once again drawing attention to the police's role in responding to homelessness.
SDPD attributes its overspending on overtime to a rise in 911 calls and violent crime and a shortage of officers. But there's also near universal agreement that police spend too much time managing the homelessness crisis. City Council President Sean Elo Rivera says right now, police have to show up to pretty much every call about homelessness, even when the situation is unlikely to get violent. He says police presence might be necessary sometimes, but if not,
let's free them up to do the work that they are tasked with, which is again more than they should be tasked with. And to me, that would be a way of expanding overall capacity without necessarily increasing the size of the force.
San Diego does have a new mobile crisis response team that gets sent to mental health, drug, or alcohol-related emergencies. But Police Chief David Nislight says it's too small to give any meaningful relief to the demands on officers. Meanwhile, police overtime is expected to be almost $7 million over budget by the end of June. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Coming up a bit later, a closer look at public safety in San Diego and around the country. Hate crimes are spiking with near daily examples going viral. KPBS race and equity reporter Christina Kim looks at the data behind this troubling trend. Local COVID But the overall trend is still well below the recent Omicron peak. The county's last report shows just over 3,200 new cases. That's up about 300 from the prior day's numbers. For context, we were seeing daily case numbers well over 10,000 just a couple of weeks ago. 22 new deaths are among the last report. A San Diego lawmaker is proposing a new bill to keep schools open and safe as the pandemic continues. KPBS education reporter MG Perez tells us it might surprise you to learn why the proposed legislation is needed.
We're all tired of COVID.
Dr. Richard Pan does not mince words. He's a pediatrician and state senator from Sacramento. He was in San Diego this morning to join another doctor and fellow state lawmaker to share the truth about COVID-19 vaccinations and the data showing who has received them. Dr. Akilah Weber is the San Diego Assembly member sponsoring new legislation.
It would be creating this requirement that every provider who gives out vaccines would have to put that information into this registry. And two, it would be allowing the schools to have access to all of that information.
The process to record each COVID vaccination given across the state does not automatically transfer the information to the California Immunization Registry. In fact, San Diego and Los Angeles counties don't report numbers to the state registry at all. They've kept their own records, which are often delayed, coming from schools already overwhelmed with COVID protocols and staff shortages. Dr. Weber's bill, submitted to the legislature today, would change that. Students at this morning's press conference on the campus of Lincoln High School say it's about time.
I'm ready to go back to normal. I'm ready to know that I can be safe at school, and I know that there's a way. And that's getting vaccinated.
Rondell Crowder and Ariana Moreno are both Lincoln High School seniors who are speaking directly to people who still are not vaccinated.
I've lost so many family members to it, and it's really frustrating that people aren't listening. People were asking for a vaccine, and now that we have it, a lot of people don't want to get it.
The adults understand that they want the pandemic to end, but they don't realize that if we have a solution, take it. We have a solution now, and they're just not taking it as seriously or as efficiently as they should be.
The UC San Diego COVID vaccination van, parked at San Diego High School today, had just a trickle of people interested in shots or boosters. Right now, this data goes to the San Diego registry, which would close down and report directly to the state under the proposed new legislation. As encouraging as the legislation might be, the process to try to make it law will not happen quickly. So the campaign to get more people vaccinated continues as the registry lags behind. If it were to pass, the new and improved California Immunization Registry would not start its infusion of vaccine data from across the state until next January 1st, 2023.
And we can get through this. We can move forward if we commit to prioritizing public health. Thank you.
And that's the last word for now. MG Perez, KPBS News.
One jab instead of two. A flu and a COVID-19 vaccine combo could be in the near future. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne tells us what a recent study showed.
The start of the flu season brings on the annual reminders to get a flu shot. This could be the case for the COVID vaccine as talk of an annual booster makes way. But a study released this week finds combining the flu and COVID vaccine may be a good idea.
The data from earlier this week really are part of that data stream, and it's good news to begin to see these sorts of things moving toward availability.
Dr. Robert Schooley with UC San Diego Health says there are many benefits to combining the two vaccines.
Being able to get them both in one injection takes care of two birds with one stone. You don't have to run the risk of having people only getting one and not getting back for the other and ending up having the pandemics come anyway. So there are a lot of potential benefits to having them put together.
The study followed over 300 people split into 3 groups. One group received just a flu vaccine, one just the COVID booster vaccine, and the other a mixture of the two. It found that the group who got the combo vaccine had just as much protection against COVID and the flu as the group who got the standalone vaccines. The study says no serious side effects were reported in any of the 3 groups. Lillian Serrano with Universidad Popular is excited about the idea of a flu and COVID combo vaccine.
Tools like having one shot that will provide 2 protections are definitely key in our welcome back community, because once again, when you don't normally go to the doctor, when you don't normally receive vaccines, being able to get one shot and be done, it's a very important component on whether to make the decision to receive it or not.
The group has been working to get more Latinos vaccinated and boosted. While no official announcement has been made on annual COVID boosters, Moderna is already working on a combined COVID and flu vaccine. That vaccine is expected to be ready in 2023. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Hate crimes increased sharply in San Diego and across the country in recent years. KPBS race and equity reporter Christina Kim says early findings show the trend grew even worse in 2021.
Hate is on the rise in San Diego, and the examples are everywhere. Just last weekend, City of Coronado Director of Recreation and Golf Services, Roger Miller, and his wife, Sandra Miller, were filmed after allegedly hurling anti-Asian racist slurs towards an Asian American couple while shopping in Orange County. Roger Miller is currently on administrative leave pending an independent investigation by the City of Coronado. His wife was fired from her job at a school in Temecula. Jason Paggio is a Coronado resident and CEO and president of the Asian Business Association in San Diego. He was disturbed by Miller's behavior and the city's response.
It was really disappointing hearing that somebody had been employed that long, and this doesn't come out of nowhere. It's not out of a vacuum. That people must have heard his actions and what he had done in the past.
Paggio has lived in San Diego County his whole life. He says the past few years have changed how he sees the region.
We know that that's just the tip of the iceberg for how others feel around town. So it's surprising. It's not the San Diego I know and what I grew up in. So it's really disheartening.
In the city of San Diego, the number of hate crimes reported by the San Diego Police Department nearly doubled last year. District Attorney Summer Steffen says her office prosecuted 30 hate crime cases in 2021 and received around 300 reports of hate incidents.
We definitely saw a rise in hate crimes, even as compared with 2020, which was already quite an increase, but we saw an even wider increase in 2021. And race-based hate crimes top the list.
This uptick in hate and hate crimes is not just happening locally. Brian Levin, director of the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at Cal State San Bernardino, says hate crimes in major U.S. cities went up 46% in 2021.
So nationally, for instance, New York, L.A., Chicago hit century highs, along with some other places.
Nationwide, race-based hate crimes are still primarily directed against Black Americans.
So in most cities, anti-Black is going to be the highest. And anti-Black has been the highest nationally as long as we've been collecting data.
But over the past few years, hate crimes against Asian Americans have increased the most. That number went up a whopping 339% nationwide in 2021. Levin says major events and political rhetoric contribute to spikes in hate.
We had these conspiracy theories really get anchored, and stereotypes and bigotries that are directed against various groups, particularly racial groups, really get anchored in 2020. Anti-Asian with respect to COVID. Anti-Black with respect to the George Floyd lynching. And the social justice protests.
Here in San Diego, the DA's office found that 12% of all hate crimes reported to them in 2021 were against Asian Americans. Steffen says this is likely an undercount, and they only capture a snapshot of the impact hate has on a community.
Hate crimes have a ripple effect. They don't just make someone feel unsafe and terrorized, who is the direct victim. They make everyone that shares the identity, the race of that individual also feel unsafe.
That feeling of not being safe is something that Paggio has been hearing from local Asian business owners, and it's taking a toll on him too.
Yeah, I mean, not just, it's very heavy hearing it, as much as we have in the last a couple years here.
Still, Payu appreciates that the issue is being tracked and hopes it inspires people to action.
I think we need allies across the board in every community. We need people standing up for us and being in solidarity with our communities.
Christina Kim, KPBS News.
Another class of female Marine recruits is set to arrive in San Diego later this month. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says it's part of a congressional mandate to end gender segregation at boot camp.
The first class of female recruits finished boot camp last May. They were the first women to become Marines on the West Coast in the 100-year history of Marine Corps Recruiting Depot San Diego. At the time, it was still up in the air when another class would follow. The Marines confirm a second class with 109 female Marines has finished the 13 weeks of boot camp at MCRD San Diego and graduated January 21st. A third class is set to arrive in 2 weeks. The Marines are the last service to segregate men and women during boot camp. Until last year, women only trained at Parris Island on the East Coast. The first class of recruits received intense publicity but was seen as a success. The female platoon led the company in drill. MCRD made very few changes to accommodate women, but it was still labeled as a test at the time they graduated. The 2020 defense bill requires the Marines to end all gender segregation by 2028. Critics continue to charge that the Marines' decision to keep women in separate platoons violates the congressional mandate to fully integrate. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
The U.S. military is providing these pictures of troops on their way to Europe. They're part of a mobilized group to support NATO allies in the growing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. 3,000 American troops will be positioned in Poland, Germany, and Romania. The Pentagon says none will be used in any direct combat roles in Ukraine should Russia choose to invade. Valentine's Day is just around the corner, but did you know there's a worldwide flower shortage? So what does that mean for you and local florists? KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado went to find out if everything's coming up roses or not.
Lavender and purple. This is the cabbage, also the kale that they call it. All the wax flowers pretty much local right now.
Flower shop owners, event planners, and anyone in San Diego County just looking to buy flowers directly from local farms and wholesalers come here. The International Floral Trade Center in Carlsbad. But as Valentine's Day looms, people in the business like Linda Price see a big problem.
It is a little crazy. I've been doing this for 36 years and I've not seen anything like it.
Price works for Milano & Company, a family farm and wholesaler. They grow flowers and greens on over 500 acres in Oceanside and Carlsbad and have 4 wholesale locations. She says demand is high, especially for their green filler for arrangements, but
the labor issue. We don't have enough people to cut our products, so we usually have thousands of extra bunches, and we have been sold out for the last 7 days. We are probably about 12,000 to 14,000 bunches in the hole.
But the worst problem is with flowers that are flown in from other countries, like the beloved rose. Most of them sold in the U.S. come from Ecuador. Rudy, who didn't want his last name to be used, says he's best known for his beautiful wholesale roses. He predicts prices will go up about 30% as the crisis is making it tough to fill orders.
Even though there's a big supply available at the source, right, there's no way to get it to market. There's a lot of losses because product gets to its destination and it's not in very good condition. It forced me to get to the point where I'm not taking any orders or booking anything. I'm doing it day by day.
Pam Veery works for Allen's Flowers and Plants, one of the largest flower retailers with several locations in San Diego.
It's been a struggle because not only is it affecting us, it's affecting everybody.
She says folks should take time before the Super Bowl to place an order for their Valentine.
We're encouraging people to order early and get deliveries early. just because of the flower shortage, to make sure that they do get their flowers in case, we don't know.
Price says she feels blessed their company continues to thrive, but the pandemic has cost the floral industry billions of dollars. Still, she remains hopeful.
It's been a very unusual, since 2020. And we've never seen anything like it, and hope that it comes back to normal, whatever that means,
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
The Omicron surge was no match for the job market as nearly 500,000 new jobs were added to start the year. SDSU's Mira Kopik explains the better than expected news in the Friday Business Report.
The jobs report this month beat expectations by a lot. Over 467,000 Americans were employed in the month of January. It really shows that the job market has been extraordinarily resilient during this entire pandemic, and especially during Omicron. One of the good news in this jobs report in particular is that all sectors saw job growth, which is a very powerful sign that the economy is still moving forward aggressively. As we saw, the year-end GDP number for 2021 was 5.7% growth. The economy is still about 2.9 million jobs shy of where we were pre-pandemic. But, since April of 2020, we've rebounded by adding back 19 million jobs.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, we speak to the White House Chief of Staff about the latest jobs report and the president's broader domestic agenda. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
We've had a bit of cool air around, but our trend is going to warm up as we head into the weekend. In fact, those winds, they're weakening tonight, so goodbye to them. Bright, dry conditions as we head through the next couple of days as, again, our temperatures go up into the weekend. Tonight, we get down into the mid-40s for our low, 44 specifically. Oceanside coming in at 34, and as you venture towards places like Mount Laguna, 36 for the low there. So it certainly is still some remaining chill in the air, and that cool air does start to retreat off towards the east. So it'll leave us with some milder times as that offshore flow again does die down a little bit. Tomorrow, we're looking at 70 for the high again in the city as you work your way towards Ramona, 69 for the high, Chula Vista, 71 for you, and Borrego Springs back into the upper 60s. So a warmer trend is what we're finding right through the weekend. Plenty of sunshine out there, not only in our area, but for the rest of the Southwest as we close out the weekend, which means again, very quiet conditions. The next couple of days here, we're headed into the 70s for the coast, mid-70s even by Monday, which means, again, mild and pretty quiet. Getting into our inland communities, maybe a few clouds for the weekend, but not a lot of clouds. I think it's still a very bright time as we close out the weekend and head into the start of the work week. In fact, for the middle of the work week, we could be pushing 80 degrees. So a very big warm up trying to work its way in towards Wednesday. Mountain locations also kind of getting in on that milder action here as we cruise into the mid 50s by the time we get into Tuesday and Wednesday. Notice no precipitation, all sunshine out there, maybe just a few passing clouds at times. And that's the same case for our desert communities, with temperatures working their way from the 60s back to the mid 70s by the time we step into Tuesday and Wednesday. Again, a big warm up on our hands here as we trend milder through the next couple of days. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
The Winter Olympics are officially underway in Beijing. Those fireworks are part of the opening ceremonies. China is imposing strict COVID rules for all events over the next couple of weeks. That includes a ban on shouting, cheering, or singing. Instead, spectators are encouraged to clap to show their support. Next week, the San Diego International Jewish Film Festival returns to showcase more than 24 films from around the world. KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando has this preview of the festival.
Film festivals at their best are adventures that take you on journeys into uncharted regions. The San Diego International Jewish Film Festival has been providing such discoveries for more than 3 decades. It specializes in unearthing nuggets of history. Take the discovery of wax cylinders, preserving Yiddish culture in the documentary Song Searcher.
When it comes to a film about a new story, a new discovery, a new piece of history, this really brings it to another level and really brings it in an exciting way to the public so that they can learn and enjoy independent cinema.
Next week, the discoveries can once again take place in person, says Festival Chair Christina Fink.
We have stepped forward with a hybrid festival, and every film will be shown in our Garfield, which has not only amazing technology, but they've really ramped up all the filtration for health and COVID standards, and then every film is online.
Yiddish culture is explored in another documentary, Who Will Remain, which looks to poet Avram Sutzkever.
The sun and the mountains and the grass, everything was talking to him. He looked at the world from a different view.
Krista Whitney is one of the co-directors.
Yiddish culture, it's something that there weren't a lot of documents online. You know, nowadays people think everything is on Google. Everything is online, and things that are not Googleable are considered not to exist by some people. But of course, that's not true.
Song Searcher uncovers a fascinating story that deserves to be preserved. True stories are also the basis for dramas, ranging from Plan A, about Holocaust survivors plotting to poison Germans.
I want my revenge. I deserve it.
To Persian Lessons, about a concentration camp inmate who pretends to be Persian to avoid execution. Then he makes up a fake language when the commandant demands to be taught Farsi. A passport to cinematic adventures from around the globe awaits audiences online and in person for this year's San Diego International Jewish Film Festival. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us, and have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.